Hi, I'm Elliot, and I'll be introducing our CreateX Capstone team, Simply Soil. The team is composed of Nathan, Jody, Amanda, and myself. We think that as the effects of climate change become more salient, people will want to adopt more sustainable living habits such as composting. However, a recent survey on US households found that 67% of them would compost if it were more convenient. So where are existing composting solutions coming up short? Well, when you think of composting, generally we'd imagine a bin outdoors, maybe with worms thrown into the mix to help with the decomposition process. There are also products which incorporate some mechanisms, such as this tumbler that rotates the waste in order to aerate it. This is important for aerobic composting. There's also this solar digester which traps heat from the sun, and the decomposition is accelerated since the system is operating at higher temperatures. But choices are more limited when you move to urban spaces. From our research, we think the two most promising options are bokashi composting and electric food cycling, which we'll get into more in a little bit. But overall, problems with existing composting systems is that they're expensive, they're difficult to use in terms of understanding what you can and can't compost with them, and they also require tons of time and effort in terms of maintenance for the compost pile. This is backed up by data from potential customer interviews that we conducted. The people we talked to are not composting because it requires a lot of effort. They're also concerned with smells that the process may emit and may not have the space necessary like for outdoor composting. Based off this research, we came up with this design objective to develop a continuous feed composting system that accepts any organic matter and streamlines the breakdown process to reduce actual compost. Our system is targeted for urban users who care about space, odor, and ease of use. In order to achieve this vision, we took an in-depth look at some promising existing composting methods. So how electric food cycling works is it grinds and dehydrates the food waste in a cycle of around 8 hours. This reduces the volume of the waste and any potential odors. But no decomposition is going on. The food cycler outputs are fertilizer, not compost. In order for the waste to actually be composted into a soil-like amendment, aerobic decomposition still needs to occur. And because of this reliance solely on natural aerobic decomposition, there are a bunch of limitations and constraints of what the food cycler can and can't deal with. While a food cycler says that it can process animal products such as meat, poultry, and dairy, if you were to just throw the fertilizer in your garden, then the manual says to not cycle waste that has animal products with the food cycler. Again, this is because no decomposition is done by the food cycler, so the fertilizer waste still needs to decay, which may attract pests and emit odors. So how can we compost with arbitrary kinds of food waste? Well, we turn to anaerobic decomposition with the bokashi fermentation process. This process works with all types of food waste, including oils, meats, and high sugar foods. How it works is anaerobic bacteria starts decomposing the waste in a fermentation-like process that takes approximately 2 weeks in an airtight container. So this is sort of like a pre-processing step. The fermented waste, which will have white mold with like a pickled smell, is then mixed with a soil medium to finish decomposing with aerobic composting. The fermentation process also produces some liquid byproduct, which must be drained every few days. Our primary innovation is that by combining electric food cycling with bokashi fermentation, we can achieve a convenient form factor composting system that can reside in a household kitchen. So the user inputs in food waste, it goes through an electric food cycling process for volume reduction. This allows the system to deal with volumes of food waste that an average family produces. The cycled waste then goes into the bokashi fermentation stage, and because we're doing this anaerobic decomposition, our composting process should work with arbitrary kinds of food waste. Then the fermented waste is mixed with a soil medium to finish by aerobic composting. For our prototype, we primarily wanted to demonstrate the mechanisms for the flow of waste through the system, so we used food cycled waste as input. We also conducted experiments to validate that food cycled waste can be bokashi composted. This was done independently of this prototype. I'll hand it over to Jody now to explain and demo our prototype device.
This is our prototype. The user starts by inputting their food waste into the electric cycling compartment from above. And the electric cycling compartment is where the waste is ground and dried. And this will run every day or so depending on how often the user puts food waste into there. And according to our capacity calculations, this bin can hold up to 28 pounds. Waste needs to stay in this compartment for 2 weeks, and a household produces 3.5 pounds of food waste per person per week. So this will function as a continuous feed system for up to a family of 4. The user will also need to input bokashi microbes into this bin, which is also inputted from above. But every 2 weeks, the cycled waste is automatically transferred into the bokashi fermentation compartment, like so. And the bokashi microbes are also transferred into this compartment, like so. And this fan is intended to blow bokashi microbes and spread them evenly over the waste. And the bokashi fermentation process produces liquid and that is drained every few days using a solenoid valve, and it drains into this compartment right here, and this liquid can be diluted and used as plant fertilizer. So after the waste has fermented for 2 weeks, it is automatically transferred into the compost factory like so. And this is when the user mixes in soil with the fermented waste, and that has to remain here for 2 weeks to become finished compost. And the user can use that finished compost to enrich their plant soil.